Okay. Good afternoon. Hi, everyone. I'm I'm Deborah Beamish, and welcome to the Jodies Resolution. I hope you guys are all well, and I'd like to introduce Adam to you.
Hello. How you guys doing today?
And Adam and I are going to take you on a tour around the Jodies Resolution. Now, just to give you a little introduction about what the Jodies Resolution is and what we're doing out here, is it's a research boat that's run by the International Oceanographic Discovery Program. And they're a really interesting research group of people who actually they invite scientists from all the way around the world to come and actually contribute towards a project, and drilling on the ocean floor. So you guys want me to show you where our ship is at the moment and where we're drilling? If you come over here, and I can actually show you the map of where we are right now. Now I'll just move my Google map to show you where you are. You're sitting over here in the United States. I've gone the wrong way. And okay, I've come up. Now if I turn this around a little bit and turn that up and turn that round, it's taking me a little while to get you. Now you guys are sitting up here, round round in the New York area. Now if I start to move across the Tasman Ocean, it's a long way across the Tasman Ocean, all the way across, and I can actually get to where we are right now. And if I turn this map around, you might be able to see it a little bit easier. Now, so we're almost on the other side of the world from you guys. But this country up here is Australia. Okay, I'll just hold that here. Where we're sitting right now this is the coastline of Australia, and we left the very north of Queensland. We left there about 8 weeks ago on the 30th of July, and we've been travelling out to sea for for almost about 55 days, and we've got 5 more days to go on the ship, and then we're going to reach Tasmania, right in the very south of Australia. We've drilled 6 drill holes. We've put one in here, halfway between Australia and New Caledonia, and then one just in here. So this was hole number of New Zealand, hole number 3, and then 4, 5, and 6. And so the scientists, what they actually believe is that there is a continent, or a piece of continental crust, a country that is actually a continent that has submerged beneath the ocean floor. And scientists from all the way around the world, and we've got 30 scientists on board the ship at the moment, and they actually are working on this project to investigate what this continent that has submerged. And they think that about 80 million years ago which is during the time of the dinosaurs, that this ocean here began to grow, and this ocean began to form, and that pushed Zealandia, which were they believed to be the submerged continent, that pushed it way over here. And then when this part of the ocean floor began to dive under this ocean floor, and you can see actually this big long scar here. This here is called a subduction zone. And when this part of the ocean actually plunges beneath this plate here, it's what it caused to happen was it caused for this continent here to actually sink beneath the ocean, and all it left was 2 countries sitting up above. It left New Caledonia, and it left New Zealand sitting above the ocean floor, and everything, the other land there was completely submerged. And so what's happened now, now in the year of 2017, they've decided that they're going to get a drilling program together and have a look to see what was this. Was this actually a continent that was above the sea, like all the other submerged beneath the ocean floor? Okay, you guys ready to come on a trip around the ship with us? All right. let's head out. It's also a industrial site, so hard hats and glasses are needed. And it's even though it's afternoon over in the United States right now, over here near Australia, it's still in the middle of the night. So it's still dark outside. And right now I'm going to get my Adam to pick up my safety glasses for me because I've left them sitting on the desk. Thank you. Okay. Now we've had to actually stop drilling for a little while because the ocean was just a little bit too rough. And what happens when the ocean's too rough is that the drill pipes bounce up and down on the sea floor, and they can't do that. The drill pipes have to stay really, really still. And if you have a look here, we've got some. Even though it's dark, you'll probably be able to see lots of waves. And in actual fact, one just broke across the front of the ship. Okay, and we'll come round to the side here. And these waves are probably probably increased in intensity since we were out here a couple of hours ago. So I was expecting the sea to be becoming a lot calmer, and in actual fact, it's not. It's actually got considerably rougher than what it was earlier on in the morning. Now we're quite lucky. The ship itself, because we're sitting in a drill site, the ship has got 10 extra sort of motors that it puts down into the ocean to keep the ship very, very stable. Because if you can imagine, we've got a very big drill rig sitting up here on the ship, and we can't. The drill rig has to stay, stable. It has to stay on the seafloor, and so to do that, they need extra balancing engines to keep the ship as balanced as much as it possibly can. And this drill tower, which is called the derrick, it is about 125 feet high, and the ship itself is about 250 feet long. So if you can imagine, there's this tower actually sits well above the ship, and it's actually almost half the length of the ship. So it really does stand out if you ever get to have a look at the Jodies Resolution. If anyone wants to ask me any questions at any time, please stop me, because I'd really like to be able to give you some feedback right now.
All right, so maybe we'll pause for a second, Deborah, and we'll visit each classroom quickly and see if they have a question for you.
Have I got a question there?
All right, let's jump to our classroom in New York, the grade 5s, and see if they have a question over there with Reach the World.
Question here. Here. Right. Yeah, talk to the.
I can't hear anything.
Yep.
How do you guys get the drill down going to the ground?
If you heard that, Deborah, I think it was, how do you get the drill bit down to the sea floor?
Chris, Joe, can you hear me?
I can. Can you still hear me? Deborah? All right, looks like we might have lost Deborah's sound for a moment. Let's see. The picture still looks good. It's still moving, so that's a good sign.
I can, every now and again I hear a voice, but it's very broken. I'm just getting half of the word or half of the syllable. Go inside.
How about now? Can you hear me?
Actually, we'll just go on inside and see if I can hear you any better.
All right, we'll let them move inside and then we'll see what we can do. They might be a little far from the internet connection, so let's see.
I can still only hear part. Can you hear me? Because I can only hear parts of words.
Hey, Deborah, we can hear you loud and clear. Are you still just hearing parts on our ends?
Here, can I give it to you for a No.
Sounds funny. It sounds, I don't know. Sounds glitchy.
Yeah, Deborah, we can hear you loud and clear. What about our grade 8s in Illinois? Give a wave if you can hear Deborah loud and clear.
I hear someone's voice every now and again.
All right. Well, we'll figure this out. Sometimes tech. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you really clearly now.
You're back. Maybe you were just moved, I don't know, maybe a little too far from the router. I don't know. But we could hear you loud and clear in the classrooms.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, just I couldn't hear any. I didn't have any response coming back to me at all. So that's really good. I have no idea what was going on because I could just hear a very broken conversation. Okay, let's continue on. And what I'll do is unfortunately, if you can hear me outside at the rig, I'll take you back outside, take you up to the rig, because then the whole thing proceeds really, really smoothly from there on. Okay,
Sure.
and I can show you where. Okay.
Sure. So we did have a question, I think.
Yeah, and then I'll just keep talking, and then we can take the class up to the base of the drill rig to show you where the core comes to.
So Deborah, can you still hear me as you're walking?
I can hear you now, actually.
Okay. The classroom in New York.
This is what's called the catwalk, and when the drillers call. Okay, you're breaking up, but I'll keep chatting in the hope that you can hear me. Okay, the drillers at the moment must be getting ready to put the drill pipes back down again. We have we haven't been drilling now for about the last 8 hours, and so they'll be all keen to get as soon as the sea will allow us, we'll put the drill pipes back down again. And all they do is go back in. They've only just pulled the drill pipe just a metre or two above the hole, and they will then do a re-entry and put the drill rods back down the hole again. What we're looking at here is that the big yellow part just above there is like a big air cushion, and that actually keeps the drill rods steady on the ocean floor, and it's like a big pillow that it will a big pillow of air that as the ship actually moves, then that actually moves with the ship itself, but it still keeps the drill pipes steady at all times. Okay, perhaps they're actually pulling up the drill rods to be able to put the drill bit back down again. Now, on the end of the drilling rods, they have the drilling bit, and this is the bit of the that actually rotates into the sea floor. These are extra wheels that are used. This rotates, and these rotate as well. And these are made of a very, very hard metal called tungsten. These wheels rotate, and what happens is these are used for particularly hard rock that they're actually coring into. The sediment that when it comes up through the core barrel, it actually gets pushed up into big plastic tubes. Now the plastic tubes are 10 meters in length. And I want you to pretend, guys, that this is 10 meters long. It's considerably, but when it comes up from the ocean floor, it's absolutely full of sediment. And the technicians carry it across their shoulder, about 5 or 6 of them, because it's very heavy, because it's absolutely jam-packed full of sediment. And they put it down on here. Now these very big long pieces of plastic tubing, you can see some of them just sitting up above us here. Because they are incredibly long, what they do is they cut them up into 1.5 meter segments so that they are the right size to be able to fit into the into the equipment inside. When they come up from the seafloor, they've come up from the areas of very, very high pressure, and they've also come up from sea temperatures, very, very, very cold sea temperatures. So when they come up onto the deck, they actually have to stabilise very quickly and stabilise to sea temperatures and to sea level temperatures. It's important that the technicians actually cap the ends of the tube very quickly. So they place caps on either end. Bottom of the core, and then they get it and they then take it inside, and then the whole process of the core starts to happen. It's very important that because the cost of coring is extremely high, it's really important that every little piece of core is accounted for, and that the marking of them is done to perfection, so that everything that is drilled is accounted for. Now, when they come inside, they enter the drilling measurements into the computer, and then that sends a message over to a laser machine. And the laser machine, if one of the technicians appears, I might be able to get him to show you how to use this machine. When they then have to engrave the side of the core, and they do two things to it. They put a barcode onto it. They engrave it with an engraving machine, and they also write on the core as well. And in that way, it's labelled 3 times. So if the paper tag comes off, or the writing actually dissolves, they've still got a very, very good record of where the core has come from, what the drill hole number is, and where the core has come from. The laser machine labels an A on one side, and then it labels a W on the other side. And so what we've got is 2 halves of our plastic tubes. One half is our working half, and the other half is our archive half. The working half is the half that gets sampled, and the archive is like our library collection that gets put away for reference, and then can be accessed by scientists for up to the next 10 to 20 years. These, while the rig is actually drilling, these racks here are absolutely chock-a-block full, and then the cores have to sit here for 4 hours before they are at the correct temperature and pressure, that they are then ready to be analysed. Okay, so from this point on, after the 4 hours and they've waited there patiently, they then actually go over to the remote sensing tracks. Now, these are unbelievably clever, because these are all analyzed for the scientists. They've got this one track here, and what it does is it analyzes every 10 centimeters of the core. This one here is this piece of equipment is a cesium radioactive material that works out the density of the sediment that they're looking at. This one here looks at to see how magnetic the particles are. And it's called the magnetic susceptibility, and it's how susceptible the rock particles are to picking up a magnetic charge. Now, this one here is very, very clever. What it does is it measures the P wave velocity, and the P wave velocity sends a pulse through the rock, and by that way it's actually like a shock pulse, and it works out the grain size of the sediment, whether it's a sandstone size, a siltstone size, or a mudstone size. And so just those 3 instruments in itself start to give the scientists lots and lots of information before they even get the core to analyse. At that stage there, as soon as that's finished, it comes around here. Now, this one's called the natural gamma radiation, Now, that is everything, every rock on the surface of the Earth, it does have its own natural radiation. It's not like it's radioactive or it's dangerous, but if you even pick up any piece of rock, it has got its own gamma radiation. But what this machine here does, it actually measures what the gamma radiation is of the different rock types. And if there is more clay in the rock, it actually gives out a higher radiation. And so that they can work out and analyze the percentage of clay to the rest of the actual particles, which becomes very, very important when they go to correlate different holes with each other. We've got one of our scientists, Thomas, sitting over here, and Thomas is actually one of our scientists who comes from Germany, and I'll get him to explain a little bit more about these are grade 5, grade 6 students from New York. And I can't actually hear anything.
Hi guys, how's it doing?
Hey, Thomas, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you? You good?
Good. You can hear us. We've
Having
got
fun?
some. Yeah. We've got some grade 5s from New York and some grade 8s from Illinois joining today.
Oh, that's nice. Hey, how are you? I'm from Germany, and strange thing is I'm sailing here from Germany. This is the other side of the planet, so I'm always upside down to my friends at home. So that's funny if you realize that. So it's far away for me, and of course it's far away for you too. Anyway, so what I do here is I'm squeezed in here between those machines. Who maybe that's the most important thing to understand. The measurements we do with those machines, we don't have to take a sample. You will see this in a second. We can look inside the core without opening it. And this can be done very quickly, so we can do it within an hour. And the instrument I'm standing here, you see only this kind of gray metal thing, this thing here. This is about the weight of a school bus made out of lead. So it's very, very, very heavy. And it has a lot of lead in there just to shield the core that we will put in there for measurement from any radiation coming from outside. So we can look what's coming out of the core only. And well, everything makes radiation. So even the light coming from my head now, so you can see it, this is some kind of radiation. We have to shield everything inside there so that we can only see what's coming out of the core. And this kind of information we can use for scientific measurements. So, and this is, as I said, it's non-destructive, so we don't have to destroy the core. So, yeah, so I'm here now for 8 weeks and still sailing. So right now the ship is moving a lot, so that's why sometimes the picture is moving. It's not me or Adam being lazy. It's just the ship moves, right? So. So it's 7-meter high waves. Sometimes it's hard to stand. So, but I'm still feeling fine. So, I know you have questions for me. Otherwise, I hand you over.
Sure, Thomas. Let me check with each of the classrooms. So let's jump to our grade 5s in New York. Do you guys have a question for Thomas about what he does or life on the ship?
Questions about?
Yeah, I can hear them.
Okay. Question? 1 second.
Yep.
Yes. How many weeks have you been working on the ship?
Well, the expedition is, by definition, is 2 months. So about 60 days. That's right. How many weeks is that? You can make that up yourself. It's 8 to 9 weeks.
And how
it's
far?
Very long.
Yeah. And how far long are you? How much longer are you on the ship?
Oh, we have now 4 or 5 more days to go. So you can see, I can show you, this is my small note. I don't know if you can see that. Oh, let me see. So I made some kind of calendar. You see that?
Yep.
Okay, so that's 5 more days. It used to have 60 days. So it was like, this is where it is. It was down to here. I can see the hand. I don't know. It was down to here. So when people visited me, they were very depressed because it was very long. But every day I cut off a centimeter. So this is about, it's about a centimeter, and I cut off every day, and that's quite nice. Now it's 5 left, so very short. That's good.
All right, and let me check with our classroom.
All right, so I give you.
Oh, there we go. Great.
Oh, good. I can hear you nice and loud now. Okay. Now's the time when these big tubes of rock actually can be, as you can see, the scientists can't see much in there. So now the core now gets split open, so it comes through into the splitting room. Now, when the cores are nice and soft, they just use a wire, and the wire runs down through the plastic tubing, and it'll split it open. But when the cores get a bit harder, they have to use a big diamond saw. And these ones here at the moment, they're really interesting rocks that we're bringing up just before we had to stop because of the bad weather. And I'll bring you over here, and you can show you some of the, and it's sort of pretty unusual really to get these sediments that are so highly coloured like this. And this looks like someone's had a big pot of paint and have been painting different colours and different mixtures and different colours and been painting things bright red colours. But this is what's actually been happening on the sea floor. And this is extremely unusual, because normally the sediments that we've seen up until now, they've all been, sort of greys and deep greys and sometimes the occasional light browns, but all of a sudden we've got these sediments now that are greens and reds. So there's something really, really interesting happening. I can't see Dr. Pikarin around at the moment, but there he is. He's hiding right down the back of the lab, and so we'll go down and have a chat to him, and he maybe can come up and have a look and show you these sediments and talk a little bit more to you about them. Okay. Okay, now here's Dr. I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Pikarin. He's from Queen's University in New York, which I believe is not too far from you guys.
Well, good morning.
Hey, Dr. Pikarin, how are you?
I'm doing great. So hello, Bronx. So yes, I'm a professor over at Queens College, which is part of the City University of New York. So I'm just a short jog away across the Throg's Neck Bridge or something like that. And so I'm one of the 8 sedimentologists on the ship, and where we have a total of 30 scientists that do just about anything you can imagine we can do to a core. And so, so right here in front of us is a sedimentary core, and this is a very unusual core. First of all, let me tell you. Maybe Deborah's already mentioned this to you, but we're in the middle of the ocean, and the ocean is super deep here. It's in fact, so we had to extend the pipe from the drilling rig over 15,000 feet through the water to reach the sea bottom. And since then, we've drilled another almost 2,000 feet. That's like 1.5 Empire State Buildings of pipe into the ground. And so here we are, and these are some of the sediments that are coming up. Now, these sediments are really cool because they're really old, and they were probably deposited maybe 5 or 6 million years after the dinosaurs became extinct. That's how long ago these sediments were around. And so you could see that this is like really weird stuff, beautiful greens and reds. And so you don't even have to be a geologist to say, wow, this is something really cool. And us geologists, as well as all scientists, are basically detectives. We do detective work. We get clues from the sediments. And so we look at the color of the sediments. We see how big the grains are of the sediments. There's also little tiny, tiny fossils in the sediments that we look at. And so we collect all these clues. And the whole point is because we want to try to unravel the mystery of what the world was like all the way back in time, tens and tens of millions of years ago, just right after the dinosaurs became extinct. And so this green and red color, you may say, well, that's pretty, but I don't understand it. Well, we're still trying to grapple with it because we're, as detectives, we're still trying to figure out why all these very unusual colors and how they're arranged. How is that going to, what's that telling us about the deep ocean back 60 million years ago, just 5-6 million years after the dinosaurs died out? The other thing that's really cool is that we're just not only scientists, we're geologists. So we may be detectives, but we're also time travelers, where we use the sediments and the fossils in the sediments to basically let us go back in time so we can try to imagine and reconstruct what the climate was like, what the world was like back 50 or 60 million years ago. So with that, does anybody have any questions?
I'm sure they do. So I'm going to jump to our classroom. We have a grade 8 classroom in Illinois joining us. Let me.
Oh, that's great.
Let me see if we can get them this time.
Hi there, guys.
Hi. The question I had was, what in the rock are you looking for that tells you that that's the 8th continent? What's different in the rock?
Oh, that So at the last part of your question broke up. So what does it in the sediment in the rock tell us about?
I think she's
Just
asking.
repeat the last part of your question.
Yeah, she's asking, what is it about the rock or the sediment you're looking for that could determine if you are over top of an 8th continent?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, we've been studying this area of the world for decades now. So first of all, what we use is seismic waves, basically sound waves that can go through the water into the sediments, and then they bounce off to the sediments, so we can actually reconstruct the sediments below the sea floor. It's kind of like okay, we're basically using sound waves to itch what's inside Mother Earth in this case. A picture of a seismic. We also collect sediments from the sea. And so right here, this is a picture of a seismic. So these right in here are layers of Earth, and this is all the way going back to the time when dinosaurs were around. So this really dark part here is actually the layer of when the dinosaurs were alive. And this is just another important boundary between this type of sediment and this type of sediment. And here's the sea bottom way up here. So we can actually image below the sea bottom to get an idea. The other thing that we need to do is also to find out what the type of rock is, because continents are made up of different types of rock than ocean crust. And so ocean crust is made up of one type of mineral, basalt typically. On the other hand, continental rock is made out of sedimentary rocks, which is rocks that came from sediments, something called metamorphic rocks. And metamorphic rocks are rocks that have been squeezed and heated and changed into other rocks. And then we also have melted rocks that are different composition from the ocean rocks. And so by collecting rocks from the sea bottom, we are able to determine that, yes, indeed, this area is not ocean crust. It's actually a continent. So that was a great question. And so in our case, our sediments, we kind of know that now that it's a continent. We're trying to figure out the history of this continent called Zealandia. Great question. Thank you.
All right, let's jump to our class, our grade 5s in New York, see if they have a question.
Okay.
Second.
Yep, someone's making their way up.
What's the hardest part of
Oh, I didn't hear what you said.
She's wondering, what's the hardest part of your job?
Oh, the hardest part of my job. Well, there isn't really anything that's hard or difficult because we love what we're doing. So just imagine Okay. I'm an adult now, and I am playing. I'm having fun. I'm exploring. I'm playing detective. I'm playing time traveler. Does that sound like hard work to you? No. Okay. It sounds like a lot of fun. And that's what we're doing. And in fact, it's even cooler than that because I'm not doing it alone. I'm working with 29 other scientists, scientists from around the world who are so cool. And they're all working really hard and they understand, they have expertise and all these different things. And we all work together. So we're all learning from each other, sharing with each other, just the opposite of what you see on TV where everyone's always competing. Here we're cooperating. We're working together. In fact, all the data we collect, everything we collect, has to be shared with everyone. So we work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week for 2 straight months. But it's I can't call it work because we're playing detective, we're playing time traveler, we're having fun. Wouldn't you like to do that? Yeah, right? Great question. Thank you.
All right. Well, it does sound like you're having fun. And I think that's a really important point is when you do find something that you want to do, it's got to be something that doesn't feel like work. You're going to be doing it for a lot of years. So I think it's important. That's a really good point to make. Find something that doesn't feel like work.
Yeah. And in fact, and that's one of the things that I don't think the TV or the media kind of portrays well. So for all the students that are listening to me right now, the point that you need to really think about is find your passion, find what you really love to do, and then it won't be that difficult because in TV and everything they always portray scientists as some sort of extraordinary, brilliant genius, a little weird sometimes, right? Okay, well, we're not that weird. And we're actually pretty cool, most of us. And we're not these super geniuses. What we have is that we love what we do. And when you love something, you learn it quickly and it's easy and it's not hard work to learn something because you love it. When I was a kid, I used to love baseball. So I knew all the baseball players. I knew their averages. I knew their earned run averages. You name it, I knew all the players. That's a lot of numbers. But the reason why it was easy for me was not because I was a genius. It was because I loved baseball. Now I love science. And though I had to really study for a long time, look at me now. I'm on a ship in the middle of the ocean playing detective. Wow. So your homework assignment is to find your passion before you start college. Okay? And then go for it. And the other thing I want to mention to you is that you have to think big. So don't think today that, I have to figure out what I got to do. Think for the next 10 years. Just explore the world. And if there's people around you who don't want to explore the world, find those cool people who like exploring. Because that's the fun part of life.
All right.
I'll take another question.
Absolutely. Let's go to our grade 8s in Illinois. I think I see someone up at the camera.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, how long does it take to engineer and manufacture all of the machinery, and who funds it?
Oh, okay. So the question is a great one. And so how long does it take to develop the technology? These technologies have been getting developed over decades. So the laboratories that we see here, you're just like right behind me here. Like, look at this. So this is something out of Star Trek. And so this is a high resolution imaging system. So it's taking a picture of the core, but at a resolution where you can see individual sand grains. It's really amazing. And then we have other instruments here, as we walk over here, that can, without even touching the sediment core, it could tell us about how much magnetic properties are inside the sediment core. It could tell us about what colors there are, and that we can, in a digital way, and so we can actually use them for trying to understand what the sediments are, even before we look at them. And so these technologies have been used for decades and decades. Who funds us? Well, first of all, the International Ocean Discovery Program is funded by 20 countries. There's over 20 countries involved in this program. And the United States side, which puts in about a third of the money is funded from you guys, from your parents, from our country, from the citizens of our country, through taxpayer dollars. And so, and for me, this will continue. This is an amazing scientific endeavor program where we have young people, and you're going to meet them in a couple seconds, people that are just in their early 20s who are on this ship, who get the opportunity. So don't think that you have to be some sort of old guy like me to get onto the ship. You could be a student still and actually get onto the ship. And so as long as people think that science is important, and I think science is very important because, you know, for example, when we have a big storm, it's climate scientists who tell you that the storm is coming. If there's going to be a flood someplace, there's climate scientists or hydrologists who are going to tell you that there's a flood coming, and so on and so forth. And so, so anyway, I would like to move on because I think that we should, I would like to have some of the young, oh, there they are right there. So let me introduce you. I'll start off with Michelle. She's a graduate student from California. And I'll let her talk about what she's doing here and what her research is.
Who are we talking to?
A school, multiple schools. One of them is in the Bronx.
Hi, how are you today? My name is Michelle Drake. I'm a graduate student from the University of California, Santa Cruz, sailing as a sedimentologist with Dr. Pikarin and two other colleagues. So here in the sedimentology lab, we are responsible for naming and describing all of the cores that we drill. We do that on a macroscopic level, observing the section half faces, looking at the color, grain size, measuring magnetic susceptibility and color reflectance. And I also like to look at the microscopic components. So maybe I can take you over to the petrographic microscope and show you what some of the sediments look like. Let's see. Pardon me while I just pull these up. So while we've been on expedition 371 in the Tasmin Sea, we've encountered two main types of, we've encountered lots of sediments, but from a microscopic perspective, we have at this site here in the deep abyssal plain, clay material, and also siliceous microfossils. So we have here a sponge spicule. This is the kind of the skeleton of a sponge that you'd find on the seafloor. Their spicules are made out of essentially glass. So they are able to make glass from the silica that's in the seawater. And when they die, all of their organic matter decomposes, and what remains is these glass skeletal structures. And so in these cores, at this deep site, we don't have any calcium carbonate or chalk microfossils. We only have glass microfossils made primarily from sponge spicules, but also diatoms, which are single-celled plants, plant-like organisms that float in the surface ocean. And they make about 50% of the oxygen we breathe. So, you know, trees look really big and are really important on land, but in the ocean, diatoms are very, very important for producing food for the, you know, they're kind of the base of the food chain, and then also producing oxygen for the rest of us, you know, heterotrophic organisms to breathe. Also, we have the other type of sediments, which we aren't seeing here at this site that we're currently at, but we've seen in many other locations is carbonate-rich sediments, and they have foraminifera, which are make their shells out of calcium, and carbonate makes chalk essentially. So these are two examples of different types of foraminifera, along with other minerals. And so these materials would look, our sediments would look really white, and we've seen lots of them. They're very cool. The foraminifera are single-celled animal-like organisms that live up in the upper water column, and they feed on phytoplankton, some of the diatoms which I showed you. So what's really neat, I think, is when you look at the macroscopic, if you just look at the cores, they can seem, you know, kind of dull, especially if they have really fine material in them. But then if you put them on a slide, the glass slide, you can look at them under this with this petrographic microscope, and you can see that there's a lot of complexity inside the sediment and lots of little microfossils and tons of minerals. When we use this analysis, the microscopic analysis, to help refine the name for the sediments, so it's as accurate as possible. that's my favorite part of what we do in the sedimentology team. Yeah, I don't know. Any questions or about life on the ship or life as a sedimentologist?
Sure, Michelle. Thank you for showing us that. Let's see. So I know our class in Illinois looks like they had to do a switch to a different period, but I see someone waiting patiently with their hand. So let's see what his question is.
So the continent Pangea that used to be there, what would this new continent fit in there, or was it already sunk underground?
Ooh, that's a tricky one. I don't know. It's currently primarily submerged, and it used to be part of Gondwana land, which was just after Pangea. Maybe I can get our petrophysicists to explain the paleogeography of Zealandia to you. This is Julian. He is a French petrophysicist sailing with us. We had a question about how Zealandia fit into the paleogeography of the larger, megacontinents.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Good. So I didn't really get the question.
So he's wondering, when there was one supercontinent, Pangea, where would Zealandia have fit in? Would it have been above the surface?
So we could say that Zealandia was partly underwater, even during the time of Gondwana, because it was on the edge of that supercontinent. Like we could say, if you look at today, it was in the same kind of configuration of the western margin of South America. So part of South America is underwater, and some of it is has mountains and volcanoes. This was probably the case for Zealandia at that time. And then from the Cretaceous, okay, I didn't know. I'm talking to little kids. I have no idea. Okay, so yeah. So it was a bit like South America, long time ago. And then sometimes in the Cretaceous, this piece of Zealandia just detached and migrated towards the east. And then it sank at that time underwater. And it stayed roughly in that position since then.
Okay, just to follow up to, follow up to what he asked. What caused that sinking? What might have caused it to submerge even more than it already was?
Okay, so it's basically like if you take I don't know the name in English. If you take something and you stretch it, it will become thinner. And then as it becomes thinner, since the crust acts like if it's floating on the mantle, when it gets thinner, then it sinks. A bit like an iceberg. If you take the root off the iceberg, it will just sink. That's what happens to continents. So if you make them thinner, then they just sink. That what happened to the Zealandian continent. It was very thick, and at some point it got stretched. And as it got stretched, it thinned out and then just sank.
All right, that's a perfect answer. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, let's see if our classroom in New York has another question. So I'll put them back. Oops, wrong mic. There we go. New York is on.
Anyone have any questions?
Hello.
So someone's just coming up now with another question.
Okay.
I'm listening.
They already answered that. 8 weeks. Yep. Sorry, we're just getting a question.
Yep.
Huh? So, sorry.
All right, they have someone. Here she comes.
Okay.
Is that part of the ground?
Loud.
Is out part of the ground examinated? And how much years will it draw to be completed?
Huh? question?
I can,
Okay, so she was asking, because you are pulling out part of ground that used to be land and is now under the ocean, how long did that take? How long did that
several
take for
millions
it
of
to-
years.
How long?
It took about I'd say about 40 million years. Very long time.
Okay, and then I think she's wondering as well, how long does it take to get that sample out and then up onto the ship? So I know you're you're drilling up to 17,000 feet down. How long does it take to pull out a core sample?
So it really depends on the water depth. For example, the present site we are on right now, the water depth is about 5 kilometers. So when we have this type of water depth, it takes about 2 hours for a core to core it and then bring it all the way back up. But when we are in shallow waters, like we had in the previous sites, in some sites we only had like 1 kilometer of water, then it can be as close as half an hour.
All right, excellent. And I have a question for you. So 8 weeks. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
That actually changes a lot the rhythm on the ship. When cores arrive every 30 minutes, it's very, very active with lots of work to do. And when it's like more 2 hours, then it's a little more relaxed, which is the case now. We're waiting for cores to arrive, but they're not arriving.
All right, excellent. Well, thanks so much for joining us and taking a couple questions from our students.
That's okay, thank you. I'll hand you back to Deb.
All right, thank you.
Hi, Joe. Have we got time? Have we got time to go and talk to the paleontologists?
Hi, Deborah. Let me check with our class in Illinois had to break. Their class ended, but maybe there's still time for New York. Let me check.
Okay.
Chris, what do you think?
I think we only got a couple minutes or so here, like about 5 minutes before we're going to have to get going.
Okay, 5 minutes is enough. I'll take you over to the paleontologist and she can quickly show you some of the little microfossils she's looking at. Okay, five minutes is fine.
Sounds good.
Okay, so it's great. And right, it's a very, very quick trip through into the world of fossils. And the fossils are fantastic because they actually tell us about what the environment was when the microfossils were alive. And I'd like to introduce you to May, and she's our micropaleontologist who works on these really, really tiny fossils. We've only just got 5 minutes, May.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, May. How are you?
It's not elementary school. Yeah. Nice to meet you. My name's May, and I'm from Taiwan. And currently, I'm a PhD student studying the University of Hong Kong. In this lab, we search for tiny little fossils in the sediment cores. So you probably know fossils. They are like dinosaurs, which is difficult to discover. But for microfossils, almost in all of the samples, we can find these tiny little fossils that tell us information about the age and the environment. So, certain species live in a certain period of time, and after this period of time, they go extinct. Also, certain species prefer certain kind of environments. Like us, some species like warm environments, some species like shallow environments, or cold or low oxygen contents, or it's saline environment or freshwater environment, and so on. And I can show you some specimens that we have found during this expedition. This is a plantic forum. Some other plantic forums. They live on the surface of the ocean. And these are benthic forums. They live at the bottom of the ocean on the seafloor. This is nanofossils. They are very useful in reconstructing age models. And these are ostracods. They are also benthic, living at the bottom of the ocean.
Now, May, what you're showing us right now, are these species still alive today, or are these extinct species?
Depends on the fossil group. I show you 4 different fossil groups. So for ostracods, most of them are still, we can still find them alive, living nowadays. But for most of the plantiform, benthiforms, and nanofossils, they have been extinct for millions of years, which is why they are useful in determining the age. Because when we find these species, we know the sediment is at least as old as that.
Very cool. And why don't I just check with our New York class one more time, just in case there's a question for May about the fossils.
You don't have any questions about the fossil? Okay, come on.
Okay, here comes a student.
All right.
How long have they experimented with the fossil?
So how long have you been studying the fossil? And
How long? I have started studying them around 5 years ago when I was in the university. And there's a paleontologist who study the fossil group that I'm specializing in my university. So it was 5 years ago. I was 18 years old at that time.
All right, excellent. Thank you very much, May. I think that our class has to go shortly. So if you want to pass it back to Deborah, and maybe we'll sign off for today. But thank you so much for giving us a little taste of what you're up to.
Sure, my pleasure.
Deborah.
Okay, must be time.
First of all, Deborah, I have to say thank you so much for that tour of the ship. And I think what really struck me was the community on the ship, people from all over the world working together to do some really exciting science.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, they're a very special group of people, actually. And the way they all work together is just quite remarkable, you know, and their interaction. And many of them have worked together before, but some of them are meeting up for the very first time. So it's a very, very special relationship here on the ship. So,
yeah.
you know, I apologize I couldn't hear anything outside. So I felt very frustrated I couldn't hear anything from the students.
That's okay. Sometimes technology, it can be great sometimes, and sometimes it lets you down. But I'd say for the most part, it's been a very clear call for the most part. So that's pretty cool.
Oh, I'm thrilled. I'm really, really pleased because not being able to hear what was going on, well, I was, you know, it felt like the students couldn't hear me. So I'm pleased that they could hear me.
All right. Well, I'm going to turn the microphone on for Chris with Reach the World in the classroom in New York. And I'm sure they want to say goodbye and thank you.
All right, guys.
Yeah, I'd like to say goodbye to them.
Okay.
Bye, Chris. Bye, guys. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you so much for joining us. It was just fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Guys, really, thank you. And thank you for coming aboard the ship. It was really lovely to have you visit us and talk to our scientists.
All
you
right.
take care.
Thank you.
Okay, and hope you're all going to become oceanographers. Okay. Bye, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.